You are standing in your driveway, holding the second quote in 2 weeks. $18,000 for the panels, and you are proud of that number until the salesman turned the page. Because the panels only make power when the sun is up, and you use most of your power after it goes down. So now, you need a battery. 12,000 more. And he says it so smoothly, like it is just weather, just the way things are. Solar needs batteries. Batteries cost money. Batteries wear out. And in 10 years, maybe 12 if you baby it, you will write that check again. You signed because everybody signs. That is the part nobody tells you. The whole industry is built on the second check. I want to show you something tonight that the thumbnail called banned, and I want to be honest with you right out of the gate because honesty is the only thing I am selling. It was never banned. There is no law against it. You will not get a knock on your door. The truth is quieter than that, and in a way, worse. It was not outlawed. It was outspent. There is a way to store the power your panels make, store it for decades, with no chemicals to degrade, no battery to replace, no recurring check to anybody. And it was working in documented engineering tests before lithium batteries were ever in a single American home. It is a spinning steel wheel. And the reason you have never heard a salesman mention it is that a wheel does not break down on schedule. There is no quarterly earnings report for a wheel that just keeps spinning. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, because I did it the expensive way first. I paid the electric company for 31 years. The bill climbed every year and the service got worse. 3 outages, one summer alone. My freezer thawed twice. The second time, I lost a chest freezer packed with beef and venison, and I stood there in the gray water dripping off the shelves, and I did the math on what reliability had actually cost me. So I went the modern off-grid route, priced the panels, priced the batteries, and the batteries stopped me cold. Not because I could not afford the first set, because I could not stomach paying for them again and again and again, every decade for the rest of my life, for the privilege of using power I had already made. That is not independence. That is a subscription with extra steps. So here is what a flywheel actually is, and I promise you, it is simpler than the battery they want to sell you. A flywheel is a heavy mass that spins. That is the whole thing. When your panels are making more power than you are using, you feed that extra electricity into a motor, and the motor spins the wheel up faster and faster. The energy does not turn into chemistry, it turns into motion. It is stored as rotation, the same way a potter's wheel keeps turning after you take your foot off the pedal, the same way an old grist mill kept grinding, long after the water slowed. Then at night, when you need the power back, you let the wheel drive that same motor in reverse, as a generator, and the spinning slows down and hands you back your electricity. Motion in, electricity out. No acid, no lithium, no rare earth metals dug out of the ground, no cells swelling and dying in your garage. And here is the number that should make you angry. A lithium battery loses roughly 2% of its capacity every single year, whether you use it hard or barely touch it. The chemistry degrades just sitting there. After 10 years, it holds a fraction of what you paid for, and you replace the whole bank. A properly built flywheel, mounted on the right bearings, loses almost nothing over that same stretch. Not because of a trick, because there is no chemistry to break down. Steel does not forget how to be steel. You grease the bearings once a year, and the wheel will outlast you. It will be spinning when your grandchildren inherit the house. Now, I know the question forming in your head, because it is the right one. If this is real, if it is this simple, why is it not on every roof in America? And the answer is not a conspiracy. I want to be careful here because the moment you start talking like the whole world is hiding under a blanket, you have lost the thread. The answer is plain economics, and it is sitting in the public record if you go looking. The physics has been documented for decades. The Department of Energy was studying flywheel storage seriously back in the 1970s. NASA tested flywheel systems at its Glenn Research Center in Ohio and ran them through the kind of punishing cycle testing that would kill a battery, and they performed. Sandia National Laboratories has studied mechanical storage for grid use. A company called Beacon Power built real, working, commercial flywheel arrays, spinning carbon fiber wheels in near vacuum to cut the friction, and installed them to steady the grid in the Northeast. The systems did exactly what they were designed to do. And in 2011, Beacon Power filed for bankruptcy. Not because the wheels failed, they did not fail. The bankruptcy filings and the reporting around them point at something duller and harder to fight than failure. They could not compete on price against lithium battery manufacturers riding the enormous subsidy wave that came with the push into electric cars. There was a tidal wave of money flowing into batteries because batteries sell again every decade, and there was a trickle flowing into a wheel that only sells once. When you build a product that lasts 40 years with no replacement, you have just disqualified yourself from the only business model the market rewarded. That is the suppression. Not a vault, not a cabal, a spreadsheet. There is no marketing budget for a thing that never needs to be bought twice. So let me tell you what you can actually do with this, because the documented history is one thing and your detached garage is another. You do not need a research lab. People have been building home-scale versions of this for years, and the bones of it fit in the bed of a pickup. You need a heavy steel disc, the flywheel itself. Plenty of people start with a salvaged piece, a thick steel plate cut round, often 40 to 60 pounds, balanced carefully because balance is everything with a spinning mass. You need a motor that can run both directions, as a motor to spin it up and a generator to draw it down. A lot of the home builds pull a motor generator out of a scrapped hybrid car for next to nothing. You need good bearings. The better the bearings, the longer it coasts. You need a sturdy frame and a housing, and that housing matters for safety, which I will get to because I am not going to hand you a fast spinning wheel and walk away. The salvage builds I have seen come in well under $1,000, sometimes a few hundred if you are patient at the scrapyard. Set that against $11,000 or $12,000 for a battery wall that you will replace, and you understand where the 90% comes from. It is not marketing math. It is the difference between buying steel once and renting chemistry forever. And no, you do not have to tear out anything you already own. If you have already got panels on the roof, you are most of the way centers. The wheel runs on its own circuit in your garage or an outbuilding, charged off your array, feeding your loads at night. You are not asking the utility for permission because you are not connecting to their grid. You do not need a contractor, and you do not need a permit for an independent circuit. You run inside your own building. You need a long weekend, a steady hand, and the patience to balance a spinning thing properly. That last part is not optional. Here is the piece. The home builders learned the hard way, the refinement that turns this from a clever idea into something that runs for years in a corner without shaking your foundation apart. A single spinning wheel fights you. It wants to stay in its plane, and the moment the earth turns or your floor sits a hair off level, it pushes back with a force called gyroscopic precession. It wobbles, it walks. Over time, that wobble can work a crack right into your slab. The fix is older than the problem. You do not spin one wheel. You spin two, stacked, turning in opposite directions at the same speed. The forces that make one wheel want to tilt are exactly canceled by the other. The whole assembly sits still as a stone. It will run on an ordinary concrete floor, on rubber pads, quiet enough to set a glass of water on top while it spins, and you can leave it there for a decade. That counter-rotating pair is the difference between a science project and a system. And you put a real housing around it, a steel containment, because a balanced wheel is safe and an unbalanced one is not. And you respect that line the way you respect any tool that turns fast. So think about what you actually have when this is running in your garage. Power you made, held without loss, handed back to you when you need it, with nothing to replace and no check to write. Not a luxury, not a gadget, a piece of the most basic independence there is, the kind that does not flicker when an ice storm takes the lines down and does not care what the lithium market does next year. I would like to hear from you, and I mean a real answer, not a thumbs up. In the comments, tell me 3 things. How big is your solar array, if you have one? How many kilowatt hours you actually burn through after dark? And whether you have got a garage or an outbuilding with a slab to put one of these in. Because the right size of wheel depends entirely on those 3 numbers, and I read every comment that comes through. If you believe, like I do, that the knowledge to take care of your own family was quietly set aside because nobody could figure out how to sell it to you, thrice, then subscribe and stand with the rest of us, pulling it back, one piece at a time. This is not an audience. It is people who are done renting their own self-reliance.